Hey, good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. What do you say? Thursday, January 2nd. It is 2014, which President Obama promises is going to be a breakthrough year for this country, and let's hope it is. Hope you had a great vacation and ready to jump into the news of the day. President Obama starts off the new year with another round of golf in Hawaii. We start off the new year with another round of news for all of us to chew on and talk about this morning. Yesterday was day one of the Affordable Care Act. Some 2 million Americans enjoying health care protection for the first time in their lives, either through the Affordable Care Act or through an expansion of Medicaid, which is part of the Affordable Care Act. Only one last-minute glitch, which is that in response to a request from some nuns out in Denver, Justice Sonia Sotomayor put on hold the provision of the Affordable Care Act, which requires that contraception be included in every health insurance plan. The government has until tomorrow, Friday, to respond to that petition by the Little Sisters of the Poor out in Denver. Also, we learned over the holidays that everything that Darrell Issa and Lindsey Graham have been saying about Benghazi for the last year and a half is totally false. The New York Times, in a monumental report, discovered that the attacks in Benghazi were locally instigated. There was no advance warning. There was no al-Qaeda involvement, and they were in fact triggered by similar similar protests in Cairo in response to an inflammatory video. All of that to talk about this morning with our guest and with you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show. Here we go, Thursday morning on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Aww, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? to change the world.
Show.
Happy New Year indeed. Hey, hello everybody. Thursday, January 2nd. Good to see you here for our first live show in the year 2014, which President Obama promises is going to be a breakthrough year for America. Good morning. Hope you had a great holiday, a great Christmas and New Year's with all your family and your friends. Got in some good relaxation time. And we know we did, and we're glad to be back with you here on the Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital and our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. You're looking good this morning, wearing all those new Christmas clothes. I mean, I'm even wearing a new little sweater vest that Santa Claus found his way all the way to Bend, Oregon, and brought me. He knows I like those sweater vests. Don't forget, we got a lot to talk about. A lot of news. The Affordable Care Act. It is now the law of, well, it's been the law of the land for 3 years now. It's the reality of the land. Kicked in yesterday with 2.1 million people already signed up. That is great, and it's worth celebrating. We'll bring you up to date on all the news here in our nation's capital, around the country, and around the globe, of course. And look forward to talking to all of you about what it means to you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. And we are glad to see and salute the team here. Peter Ugburn, good morning. Happy New Year.
Hey. Happy 2014.
2014. How about it? Yeah. Healthy and happy indeed. Alicia Murphy as well.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Alicia Cruz there on the phones, and Cyprian Bolding. Everybody here, our videographer. Thank you, Cyprian. Great to see everybody looking good, looking refreshed, looking relaxed, ready to go.
Yeah, it's not exactly the most refreshing, relaxing holiday to take when you have
kids
and travel and all that stuff.
It's not like Thanksgiving where you just eat and drink.
Chill.
I mean, the Christmas is a lot of work.
It is,
and traveling at Christmas is a lot of work too. So we have a. But first of all, where were we at midnight? Tuesday night, of course, all around the tube. If we weren't there in Times Square, that's where the ball drops, and that's where we first hear 2014. I missed it, Clive. Yeah. Sonia Sotomayor wasn't quite the same.
No,
you know what I mean.
And Ryan Seacrest certainly isn't. The same.
Ryan.
That's their big replacement for Nick
Not
Clark.
the same at all. Meanwhile, let's see, 6-hour time difference away in Hawaii. President Obama celebrated, as he has almost every day, by going out to the golf course, seeing some fans as he was hopping back in the motorcade. And through them, wished us all the best for 2014.
Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, guys. Yes, indeed, Mr. President. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. So Santa Claus found his way.
Santa Claus, he's a crafty guy, man. He found his way to Ohio, where we were with the in-laws. And Santa Claus was good to the kids. Santa Claus was good to me, and
he found his way both to Bend, Oregon, and to Inverness, California. He was on his way.
We had the Santa
we were tracking him on this, on the NORAD, right?
Yes.
Thing, yeah. So
it's fun.
It is fun to watch.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, we got lots to talk about. Lynn Sweet, Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times, good friend of ours, is going to be here in the studio with us as a friend of Bill. Alan, this is a historic day yesterday. Pot on sale in Colorado for the very first day. What happened to Washington State, by the way?
I don't know. We'll have to ask Alan.
Yeah,
I don't know
because all the stories are out of Colorado, but
right.
Washington State also legalized recreational marijuana, but it definitely went on sale yesterday for the first time. Lines were miles long in the Mile High City. Alan St. Pierre head of NORML, will be here in studio to tell us all about it. And Michael Calderone from the Washington Post, their media critic, will be here as well to take a look at some of the big media stories in 2013 and what we can expect in 2014. And yes, Affordable Care Act jumping. It's now underway with one big glitch, which we're not too happy about. Let's get into that. But first, Peter, you're here with the big stories.
Press. Yes, indeed. Well, in case you missed it, the Washington football team fired Mike Shanahan earlier this week. But that's not my favorite part of the story. My favorite part of the story is running back Alfred Morris.
That was no surprise to anybody,
that was
right?
Coming.
Yeah,
we knew that was coming. So the media starts trying to get comments from players and everybody like that. So running back Alfred Morris, he rushed out of there. He didn't give any comment to anybody. Why? Well, when he was asked to comment to the press, Alfred Morris said he needed to leave immediately because he needed to make it to Chick-fil-A before they stopped serving breakfast. They stopped serving breakfast at 10:30, and the Shanahan firing, it all happened around 10:15.
Oh, yeah. No.
And he had to hightail it out of the stadium, man, because Chick-fil-A stopped serving breakfast at 10:30, and he would not be denied.
That man has his priorities straight.
That's right. He
exactly.
had to talk to the media. Get out of there. Beyonce has taken some heat from NASA this week. She used an actual audio from the space shuttle disaster of 1986 in her song XO. She sampled some audio that was recorded just after the space shuttle exploded after takeoff, killing all 7 crew members. She claimed that the audio was to pay tribute to the work of the Challenger crew. NASA released a statement earlier this week so that the, quote, Challenger accident is an important part of history, a tragic reminder that space exploration is risky and should never be trivialized.
Well, tasteless on her part, I would say.
A little tasteless. Yes, indeed. And a new Gallup poll of the most admired men and women in America was released.
Did I make the list?
Number 1 most admired man was...
Drum roll, please.
President Barack Obama.
Okay.
And the most admired female, most admired woman was...
Hillary.
Perhaps our next president, Hillary Rodham Clinton. Yes, indeed. Other contenders in the poll included George W. Bush and Pope Francis, who got 4%. And behind Clinton was Oprah Winfrey with 6%. And tied for third was
Ted Cruz,
Michelle Obama, and Sarah Palin, who each had 5%.
Get out of here.
I'm sorry, I'm just telling you what Gallup poll said.
Oh, man. I'm surprised the Pope didn't rate a little higher.
I know. No, he came in at 4%.
All right. Thank you. Getting us started here. Don't forget, we are coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station. Hello to all of you out there. All of our good friends around the country listening to Progressive Talk Radio, and we thank you for doing so. We want to again thank our good friends at Colotex Bakery out in Chicago.
Yeah, man.
You know what? It took us we needed 10 days.
Yeah.
To get through that gift basket. In fact, there's still some.
We still have some things kicking around.
We do too. Yeah, we do too. And Chicago getting 5 inches of snow yesterday too, man. Yeah,
man.
And it is headed our way. So in your local Progressive Talk radio station, wherever you happen to be, thank you for joining us, as well as thank you for joining us on Free Speech TV. If you have a satellite dish, you can watch us on DirecTV or the Dish Network. And those of you on the video stream, welcome back to TawkrTV, TawkrTV, and you get there by going to youtube.com/TawkrTV. Yes, indeed. Yesterday, January 1, the Affordable Care Act, now the reality here around the country. 2.1 million Americans with, let's let Kathleen Sebelius, head of the Affordable Care Act, tell us how we start out.
More than 2.1 million people have enrolled in a private insurance plan through the marketplace, either the state-based marketplaces or the federal marketplaces, since the start of early enrollment.
So those are people who have signed up either at the federal level or the state level. That does not include all the people who have been able to take advantage of an expansion of Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. So we're up to over 3 million people now who have health insurance. Think about that. 3 million Americans who have health insurance for the first time ever. Now, that's just a small percentage of the 36 or 40 million people who had no health insurance before the Affordable Care Act was passed. But given all the problems with it, the fact that we're in the plus territory, significantly into the plus territory, is great news. It's certainly good for all those. And I've seen so many stories. Finally, we're seeing stories about people who have serious health problems, who could never get health insurance because of a pre-existing condition. Now they can. And these numbers are just going to grow and grow and grow, and it's going to get better and better and better. It's a reason to celebrate. It's not single payer. It's not what we deserve, what we should have, but it's the best we've ever had, and that is a good step forward. Only one problem, which is at the very last minute, a group of nuns out in Denver, the Little Sisters of the Poor, filed an appeal to the United States Supreme Court to stop one portion of the Affordable Care Act, that portion which requires that all health insurance plans include coverage for contraception. And Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who is a Catholic, by the way, went along with that request and granted the nuns permission to delay that one provision of the Affordable Care Act. She gave the Obama administration until tomorrow, Friday, to respond to the nuns' petition. This is a crazy, crazy, crazy thing to happen. I'm disappointed in Justice Sonia Sotomayor. I think she was being a careful jurist and saying, well, everybody has their day in court, so we'll give them a few days to make their case. But still, it does throw a wrench into what otherwise was a historic occasion. And it's just wrong. Ted, what the nuns are just asking is dead wrong. Look, let's just lay this out one more time. And again, love your comments at 866-55-PRESS. Number one, no doubt about it, right? Pregnancy is a healthcare issue and ought to be covered by every health insurance plan, whether a woman decides to go ahead with a pregnancy or not to get pregnant, or to get pregnant and have a child. So prenatal care ought to be covered. Child care, I mean, the whole birth process ought to be covered. The birth itself ought to be covered. Contraception ought to be covered. And it's a woman's choice as to whether or not she takes advantage of that coverage or not. You cannot dispute that. Number two, the Catholic Church teaches, the hierarchy, the priest and the bishop teach that contraception, all forms of birth control, are wrong. Now, I think that's totally nuts, but it's their right to do it. It's their right to believe that. The problem is Catholics don't buy it. We've seen that. The priest may say you cannot use any form of birth control, but Catholics say, guess what? We're going to do it anyway. 95% of Catholic women acknowledge that they have used some form of birth control. So what the church is now saying is, through these nuns and other organizations, we can't get Catholics to obey us, so we'll get the government to deny them access to birth control. We'll let the federal government do our job for us. Where we have failed, we want President Obama to step in and do it. No, that's not the government's job. That's not your job. It's not my job. And we are not interfering with anybody's freedom of religion by providing health insurance to all women of America and to providing coverage for contraception for all women of America. It's up to the woman to choose whether or not she's going to use birth control or not. And 95% of Catholic women say, damn right I'm going to. You know, I've had 2 kids, I don't want any more, or whatever, or for whatever reason, can't get pregnant at this time, or don't want to get pregnant at this time. So this whole phony baloney argument that the bishops have thrown up here over and over again is just wrong. And I, again, totally disappointed in Sonia Sotomayor for even giving them the time of day. Let's hope tomorrow when the government responds that the justice says, okay, I see what the facts are now. Let's go ahead and make contraception coverage available to all women of America. And you know what the church ought to do? Just change its policy, because it obviously ain't working, right? I mean, and that's not saying you're pro-abortion. It's just saying you understand that women want to control their own body and that birth control is an important part of that. By the way, for men and women. Yeah. 866-55-PRESS, you know the toll-free number. Let's talk about it. Sonia Sotomayor. Wrong on this one, don't you think? You bet.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, 25 minutes after the hour. It's good to be back. No kidding,
Yeah.
Sometimes you say that and you don't mean it. I feel it today. Good to be back in the swing of things here on the Bill Press Show. And don't forget, look forward to your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Talking about This last-minute decision by Justice Sonia Sotomayor, another wrinkle in the Affordable Care Act, saying that Catholic institutions, it's not, understand, it's not that their health insurance, so they're not saying that they're giving contraception or coverage to nuns. They're also not providing contraception coverage to the patients of the Little Sisters of the Poor, because they take care of nursing homes, people, the real aged population. They're saying that they don't want to have contraception coverage in the health insurance that they provide to the women who work in their clinics or their hospitals or their nursing homes. And I believe strongly that should be up to that woman to decide. The nuns should not be able to force them not to use birth control, and the government should be totally out of the picture altogether. Marcia is calling from Raleigh, North Carolina. Hey, Marcia, good morning.
Good morning. Well, you've changed the subject on me. We're going to have to rethink church and state stuff soon.
Well, exactly. That's another wrinkle of this, too. I mean, why is the justice even giving these nuns a time of day, right?
Yeah. But what I called about was, listen, I'm really happy about the Affordable Care Act, but as a person that makes $18,000 a year that qualifies for Medicaid but lives in North Carolina where they don't accept Medicaid, I have an idea. And I was hoping, since you go to talk to the president every now and again, what I suggest is that he take the money that's already put aside and carve out a Medicare solution for those of us who are in that specific category, and give us Medicare Part Red State. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
And it'll be like a step towards single payer because we'll be in the Medicare system.
That's an excellent idea. I also see Kathleen Sebelius from time to time. I thought I'd see her over the holiday, but I didn't. I'll mention that to her. Marcia, you probably heard me say this before. That's where we should have gone. I think we should have just had expanded Medicare to everybody, which would have been a better plan than the Affordable Care Act, and I think the American people would have understood it better. But certainly for poor people not poor people, but poor people, poor souls who live in a state with a governor like you've got, right? You can't take advantage of this opportunity. So, first of all, you need a new governor, and secondly, we can come up with a better plan. I like your solution. I will definitely raise that with the powers that be next time I have a chance. And meanwhile, I just hope everybody sees the opportunity out there and signs up. More talk. Let's talk about separation of church and state indeed. And Sonia Sotomayor is saying, now let's give the nuns a chance here to derail one important aspect of the Affordable Care Act. Should health insurance cover contraception? Yes or no?
That's the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
How about it? Thursday, January 2nd. Welcome back, everybody. The Bill Press Show. Here we are live again. Starting off the new year with another little roadblock in the road to universal health care in this country. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, of all people, one that I thought we could count on to do the right thing, has instead granted a request from some nuns out in Denver, Colorado, Little Sisters of the Poor, to delay, and they would like to repeal the provision of the Affordable Care Act, which requires that contraception, birth control, be covered in health insurance plans. Seems to me, forget, whatever Catholics, some Catholics, Catholic priests and bishops may believe, who think that all birth control is evil and is a mortal sin. Most Americans don't agree with that. The federal government is not in the business of enforcing Catholic doctrine, and most Catholics ignore what the priests and bishops say, as we know. So what's the big deal? Justice Sonia Sotomayor thinks it is a big deal. I think she's wrong, and I hope that she will see that, and tomorrow, when the government responds, that she would just say, okay, let it go forward. Your thoughts, 866-55-PRESS. By the way, it's not just the Catholic nuns. There is a petition has already been made to the Supreme Court by some corporations and companies in this country whose owners are Catholic. Notably, I think the most well-known of them is the Hobby Lobby. They also, the guy who runs the Hobby Lobby, doesn't think that any women who work for the Hobby Lobby should have birth control covered in their health insurance plan. I mean, come on. It's up to her to decide whether or not she's going to use birth control or not. They should not try to stop it by forcing these women to pay for it. My opinion. How about yours? Rose is in Pittsville, Wisconsin. Hello, Rose. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. I just want to know how far do they really want to push this and open up a can of worms here. What happens if you're a religion that doesn't believe in blood transfusions or hospitalizations or surgery? I mean, how far are we going to go with this?
Excellent point.
They're going to tell you that.
No, excellent point. Right. And again,
if they give this leeway to the Catholic religion, what about the rest of them?
Excellent. You ought to be in front of the Supreme Court making that argument, Rose. It makes a lot of sense to me. But it is true. And again, in terms of freedom of religion, right, what that means is that Catholics are free to believe this. And we know that most Catholics don't believe it. But let's put it another way. The Catholic Church is free to preach this. And nobody is saying they cannot. Nobody is interfering with that freedom of religion. But women ought to be free to control their own bodies as well, Catholics and non-Catholics. And it's not up to us to decide whether Catholic women follow the bishop's teaching or not. 95% of them don't. But that's none of our business, right? As the government, all we do is we make health insurance available, and then people decide whether to get a mammogram, whether to have a colonoscopy. There are some elective choices under health care, right? Whether or not to use birth control of any means. And if they do, then that pill ought to be covered. Let's say it's the pill, whatever, or the diaphragm, whatever it is, ought to be covered by their health insurance policy across the board for all American women. James has this comment from Olympia, Washington. Hi, James. How are you?
Good morning, Bill.
Happy New Year. Good morning.
Call. Happy New Year to you, sir, and to your family.
Thank you.
Just wanted to say that basically you made the point that I was going to make quite concisely when you said that the government is not supposed to be in the business of upholding religious law. And likewise, if they are, then I expect them to uphold the religious law by which I live, which says that I'm supposed to engage in as much sex as I can every day, and that in doing so I have to have birth control. That's part of my religion. So let's. If we're going to uphold religious law, then let's uphold all religious law.
Wait, well, first of all, James, I want to know what church you belong to, because that church of all the sex you want all the time, you want it. I might want to sign up for that one. But on a more serious note, I was just thinking while you were talking, the Catholic bishops also teach that the death penalty is wrong, right? So. Right. How can the government continue to practice the death penalty, right?
And why aren't the Catholic bishops more up in rage about that as well?
Exactly. The Catholic Church also teaches that the use of nuclear arms and nuclear weapons is wrong. Why aren't the bishops more upset about that? And why is the government continuing to stockpile all these nuclear weapons? You see, that's the point. It's not only wrong for the government to be enforcing any policy of the Catholic Church. It's doubly wrong for them to select which policies of the Catholic Church they will propagate and they will enforce and which ones they won't. You're going to do one, you have to do them all. That ought to be the rule.
Absolutely. And by the way, remember, I just wanted to throw this out there because we are on Twitter at BP Show. We're getting comments. We're getting your take on that.
Yes, don't forget that.
Christine just weighing in at BP Show on Twitter. At BP Show says, no religion, employer, or legislator should be allowed to deny health care to anyone, nor should they prohibit insurance for the same. So if you want to join in the conversation online, go to at BP Show on Twitter.
Now, some of you do know this. My background, I was raised a Catholic. I went to Catholic high school. I studied 10 years for the Catholic priesthood. Okay? I mean, I know the Catholic faith inside and out. I still fail to see any connection between health insurance, keeping people healthy, providing people the health coverage they need and choose to take advantage of, and the Catholic faith and the Catholic religion. And it's only the extremely conservative Catholic bishops, mainly American bishops, that try to make that connection and are trying to force our government to police their policies and to force Catholics to obey what Catholics have so far refused to do. And that's dead wrong. And Sonia Sotomayor knows better. Lucas in, Ulrichville? Oryxville, Ohio. Is that right?
Uricksville.
Now we got it. Hey, Lucas, how are you? Morning.
Not bad yourself.
Good. Happy New Year. What's up?
Wonderful. Happy New Year to you also. Well, like I believe you're trying to say, our religious beliefs should not have anything to do with how we're covered on our health insurance.
Yeah. I mean, and again, as Rose said earlier, how far do you go with this? What if you've got a belief, if you're a Christian Scientist against all medical coverage whatsoever, right?
Right, yes. What does that have anything to do with our health coverage? We should all be covered the same, regardless, across the board, all the way.
Seems to me it's got to be that way, Lucas. Appreciate hearing from you. All right, yeah.
Color, age, whatever.
Or whatever faith you happen to belong to, or whatever church you happen to belong to, right? Absolutely. Lucas, good to hear from you. This is just, I hope, a temporary obstacle, but it does get back to that, as one of our first callers said, to that basic question of church and state. And you see the trouble we get into when you cross the line. All right, again, bishops and priests of the Catholic Church, you are free to preach whatever you want, but you ought to start by recognizing that you have not made the sale. And I think the reason you haven't made the sale to Catholic women is because what you're preaching about birth control, that any form of birth control for any reason whatsoever is wrong. Most American women just don't buy that because they know it's not right. And they also know it's being put out there by a group of men who have no sexual experience whatsoever. At least that's what they claim. They're the last ones. They're the last ones to tell us how to run our sex lives. All right, here we go. When we come back, we're going to be joined. Let's take a look at New York and a big change up in New York with Mayor Bill de Blasio being sworn in yesterday. Hunter Walker, National Affairs reporter for Talking Points Memo, joins us in the next segment.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 14 minutes before the top of the hour. Just checking. I forgot that I was asked by Politico what my New Year's resolutions were.
Oh God. Okay.
Right. I forgot that. I was just reading during the break. Radio host Bill Press says he plans to say nothing but nice things about John Boehner and Mitch McConnell in 2014. But the liberal talker admits, quote, I make these resolutions confident that I will break them within the first week of 2014.
Okay. All right, good.
Parentheses, he also wants to run the New York Marathon and give up martinis.
Okay. Yeah, so, those are terrible resolutions.
I just want you to know that I've got that. Yeah, right. I'm out there. Well, 2014 off to a roaring big start up in New York City yesterday with the swearing in of Bill de Blasio as the new mayor of New York City. Hunter Walker, national affairs reporter for Talking Points Memo, has joined us several times during this run-up to the mayor's race and run-up to the new mayor in New York, and he's on our news line again this morning. Hunter, thanks for being with us, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Bill. Thanks for having me.
So, Bill de Blasio yesterday, true to form, right? He promised a new day for New York. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, he made a rousing speech in which he used the word progressive 6 times.
Right.
And, really branded himself as sort of a return to the politics of FDR and Al Smith and Jacob Riis that New York was known for really prior to Mike Bloomberg and Rudy Giuliani. In fact, some of the other speakers were very overtly anti-Bloomberg, who was, of course, sitting right there, looking quite displeased.
I was going to ask you when de Blasio said, progressive, it's in our soul. This is who we are. What was Bloomberg's reaction?
Well, it's a very interesting thing because I think if you talk to Bloomberg's people and you talk to Bloomberg himself, he sees himself as sort of someone who transcends, the rest of the country's red and blue politics.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in which he really, really is progressive. So I think, notably his gun control activism, his climate change activism, he sees his public health crusades as sort of a progressive move. Right. So I think he's genuinely irked when sort of there's this criticism of stop and frisk and this criticism of homelessness in the city. It's a progressive criticism. And, one thing he always points to is, first off, there was cuts in federal aid to homelessness that really exacerbated what the city was able to do. And also, he sees the guns off the street and the low numbers in crime as sort of evidence of him looking out for particularly the black community.
Right.
So, it really does get to him.
I hear that. And he certainly was no Rudy Giuliani, right? Yeah. And so certainly very progressive compared to Giuliani. I want to play one quick clip from Bloomberg yesterday, because this is something, de Blasio yesterday. This is something that he campaigned on overtly, and he repeated yesterday in his inaugural address.
We are called to put an end to economic and social inequalities that threaten to unravel the city we love.
Income inequality. What's he actually going to do about that, Hunter? Do we know? Or what can he do?
I was talking to a close aide to the mayor yesterday, who was saying that, as Bloomberg viewed sort of addressing terrorism in the wake of 9/11, he was elected, literally during 9/11. That was Bloomberg's central challenge. Before Bloomberg, Giuliani viewed sort of cleaning up the city and the crime wave as a central challenge. And, de Blasio is really taking inequality as the crisis in the city that he feels he needs to address. One thing he brought up in his speech that is sort of his central plan to deal with this is a plan to increase taxes on people who make above $500,000. He said in his speech that this will be an average of about $973 a year, or what he framed as the cost of less than a Starbucks latte every day. And he wants to use that money to go to universal pre-K. But it's going to be a really interesting issue because, he campaigned on this, but city tax code actually requires approval from the legislature and the governor in Albany.
Oh, really?
So he doesn't really have the power to implement his own central plan.
I was going to ask you whether he had that power, and you answered that question for us. Now, it sounds like that his first test, however, may not be how well he does on income inequality, but how well he does on getting the snow off the streets tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we're in for a pretty big snowstorm here, and as we saw with Mike Bloomberg when he infamously botched a blizzard while in Bermuda, John Lindsay when the streets were not clean in a garbage strike. New Yorkers do not like it when a mayor mishandles the weather, and it would be a big problem for him if this doesn't go smoothly. And, fair or not, because of the timing of this, it's really, really being viewed as a test for him. But, I can tell you, I was just out now, and the salt is on the ground. So.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I hope that he spends all day today making sure the plows are ready for tomorrow. And finally, Hunter, did they find the Bible? I mean, we heard that the Bible he was sworn in on, the Bible used by FDR, that they lost it somehow. What the hell?
This was one of the most incredible stories coming out of the inauguration. He used a Bible used by FDR at his first inauguration that he borrowed from the presidential library. And the New York Post reported that for several hours after the ceremony, it was misplaced. They had the entire NYPD security detail combing the garbage cans in City Hall. No. One of them announced, "I found it," and was waving it around. Sadly, the Post did not report where the Bible was found. But yeah, that was an interesting wrinkle in the ceremonies yesterday.
Oh gosh, I hope it's not a bad omen for the days that are ahead.
To a bad start.
Hunter, great to check in with you again. Happy New Year, my friend. All right, thanks so much.
You too. Thanks for having me.
Hunter Walker, National Affairs reporter for Talking Points Memo. TalkingPointsMemo.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, in the next hour, Lynn Sweet, Washington Bureau Chief for Chicago Sun-Times, will be here in studio with us. And we'll also be joined by Michael Calderone, senior media reporter for the Huffington Post. I think earlier I said Washington Post. Okay, it's hard to keep track of these guys. They keep bouncing around. I know, exactly. Peter?
I don't use Snapchat, but a lot of people use Snapchat. The whole idea here is you can send photos privately to other Snapchat users, and then they can't save them, and it's everything gets deleted, right? That's the whole idea behind Snapchat. Well, 4.6 million Snapchat users and their usernames and their phone numbers were leaked out earlier this week.
No.
The pictures were not leaked, but just the information. So if you have a Snapchat account and you wanted to keep your phone number and your username private, tough luck. It's out there.
Can we just accept the fact that there is no such thing as privacy on the internet?
It's gone.
Huh?
It's gone.
Seriously, everything you post, everything, it's out there, baby.
This
Back with Lynn Sweet
is
for
the
another
Bill
hour.
Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. What do you say? Here we go. Thursday, January 2nd. It is 2014, which President Obama promises is going to be a breakthrough year for this country, and let's hope it is. Hope you had a great vacation and ready to jump into the news of the day. President Obama starts off the new year with another round of golf in Hawaii. We start off the new year with another round of news for all of us to chew on and talk about this morning. Yesterday was day one of the Affordable Care Act. Some 2 million Americans enjoying health care protection for the first time in their lives, either through the Affordable Care Act or through an expansion of Medicaid, which is part of the Affordable Care Act. Only one last-minute glitch, which is that in response to a request from some nuns out in Denver, Justice Sonia Sotomayor put on hold the provision of the Affordable Care Act, which requires that contraception be included in every health insurance plan. The government has until tomorrow, Friday, to respond to that petition by the Little Sisters of the Poor out in Denver. Also, we learned over the holidays that everything that Darrell Issa and Lindsey Graham have been saying about Benghazi for the last year and a half is totally false. The New York Times, in a monumental report, discovered that the attacks in Benghazi were locally instigated. There was no advance warning. There was no al-Qaeda involvement, and they were in fact triggered by similar response or similar protest in Cairo in response to an inflammatory video. All of that to talk about this morning with our guest and with you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show. Here we go, Thursday morning on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have Pep Talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Happy New Year indeed. Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, January 2nd. We're back in action here on the Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital. We want to thank you all for being here this morning. Good to see you. Hope you had a great holiday vacation, Christmas and New Year's. And we want to thank, Richard Fowler, Evan McMorris Santoro, and
our buddy Carl
Frisch.
Yes,
that's it for filling in while we were gone. It's been that long ago, we forgot.
I know.
Well, the big test is if I can remember the names of our staff and team here this morning. But it's good to be back with you. I had a great break with my family out in Oregon and California, and we've got lots to talk about this morning. Back with us, as soon as she clears her throat, we're glad to welcome one of our best friends. Lynn Sweet is the Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times. Happy New Year. Nice to see you.
Our first in-studio guest of 2014.
In-studio guest of 2014.
The first baby or the first wedding, the first guest?
That's what it is.
What do I get?
Welcome.
But you know what? You and I are not in Hawaii with the president.
No, we're here.
Did you spend any time out there at all? No.
It's net counterproductive. I mean, it's very, very expensive. I'd love to be there. I love the backdrops when I see the stand-ups.
Right. Same here.
The surf in the background, but no, it's not.
But as you and I know from following the coverage and reading the pool reports, there's nothing going on. Mm-hmm. And I called I was thinking about going out for a few days, and they told me there will be no public events planned, nothing, unless some, God forbid, some big, political something blew up in the world somewhere, right? The president was just not going to. So he's just having his vacation and playing a lot of golf. Nice to see you, Lynn, nice to see our team here, Peter Ogburn. By the way, while we're on the president, right?
Yes.
Yesterday he had another round of golf, and there were some people there waiting to cheer him on as he left, and he sent us all his best greetings for 2014.
Happy New Year, everybody! Happy New Year, guys!
Happy New Year, guys!
Well, that was a lot. But one other thing that President Obama and Mrs. Obama did yesterday, they did send get well greetings to Barbara Bush, who's ailing in a Houston hospital.
Yes, indeed. The reports are pretty positive coming out of the hospital, but she's in for a respiratory infection.
It is interesting how they communicate it. There's a statement from the White House. It's about a paragraph. But what, of course, gets the attention right away is they also sent out a message on a tweet.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
wow.
So. Anyhow, Peter Ogburn, Happy New Year.
Hey.
Elisa Murphy. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
Good to see you again, too. Thanks for hanging in there. Alicia Cruz as well. Who's got the phones covered. Whole team here this morning, Lynn, just for you. And Cyprian Bolding keeping us looking good on the Free Speech TV and on the video cam. We've got lots to talk about with Lynn. Michael Calderone from the Huffington Post is going to join us a little bit later in the hour to talk some of the big media stories in 2013. And in the next hour, this is day number 2 of legal pot sales in Colorado, and Alan St. Pierre from NORML will be here to celebrate that occasion. Is today the day he's bringing the samples in?
I don't think it's legal here yet, friend, but no, I don't think we'll be doing it.
So I actually have a question. Maybe he'll know the answer. So if you do something that is considered illegal in one place, but legal in another, if you smoking pot here is illegal. Should not do it. So you go to a place, Colorado, the Netherlands, where it's legal. It would be like the drinking age.
Right.
It might be.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
what's your question?
So my question is, if you have an employer, when you fill out those forms, have you done anything
illegal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say no.
Well, I don't know that they say illegal. They say
have you? I think they ask directly. Have you
smoked pot?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I have not. I've had blessed to have one job for a long time.
Yeah, sure, that's true.
But I thought they asked questions like this about drug use. Maybe that's how they say it then.
Or have you broken the law?
Well, that's a different question, because if you went 5 over the limit, you have.
Yeah. Drug use. Well, depends on whether you want to be honest or not.
Well, wait, but drug use, no one would say if you take an aspirin,
right?
You would not report. Yeah. So I want to know how they answer the question.
Question for Alan St. Pierre in the next hour. All right. We'll get to the issues of this hour, but first. Peter Ogburn with the big stories of the day.
Yes, indeed. Just a few other stories making news. A small brew pub in Cottleville, Missouri came under scrutiny from Starbucks' legal department after a customer referred to one of their pub's brews as Frappuccino on a beer site. The pub received a cease and desist letter that required a response from the brew pub. The owner of Exit 9 Pub and Brewery, Jeff Britton, wrote a sarcastic letter along with a $6 check to Starbucks. That covers the cost of one of their Frappuccinos. They posted it all over social media. They now have renamed the stout the F word instead of Frappuccino.
Oh.
Yeah, so Exit 9 Pub and Brewery in Cottleville, Missouri.
Go get some of the F word. The F-bomb.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. Speaking of Starbucks, say hello to Beautiful Existence. That is the woman's name. It is her legal name. And she spent 2013 eating every single meal at a Starbucks.
Oh, my God.
She's 40 years old. She says it costs between $500 to $600 per month, and you can get pastries and sandwiches and salads and soups at Starbucks all around the country. She ate every single meal there. She is the mother of 2, and she made sure that her children ate food somewhere else.
But they
she
don't
herself
have that good food at Starbucks.
No, they
it's not good food.
Very limited.
It's limited. What they have is tasty, but it's extremely limited.
Right.
So, yeah, but, she ate, a salad there every day for lunch and would take a little sandwich to take home for dinner. And
yikes.
There you go. That's how much it'll cost you.
Get a life.
And National Journal has released its biggest political winners and losers of 2013. Topping the list of winners. Any guesses?
Winners. For
winners. Political winners for 2013.
Oh, 2013. Ryan.
Top of the list?
Christie.
Chris Christie is top of the list. Sure. Yes, indeed. Yeah. And Bill de Blasio topped that list as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
If we're talking losers of 2013, any other guesses for losers?
Ted Cruz.
President Obama is the top of the list for the loser of 20. He had a rough year.
Oh.
Followed by Ken Cuccinelli, and then my vote, of course, would be Anthony Weiner.
Oh, yeah, of course.
A very rough year for Anthony Weiner.
God, I've forgotten so much about 2013
right?
already.
That happened.
When was
Seriously.
That just happened.
When was that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you mentioned Bill de Blasio. Lynn, you have written about the fact that we have a new mayor in New York City. And it's very interesting because, and we have a relatively new mayor, 2 years now?
Well, actually, 3. He's going to run for 2.5. He's run for re-election in 2015. And this is 2014. So
in Chicago.
Yeah.
So your hometown yesterday had 5 inches of snow, and Bill de Blasio's first test may be, or will be, I guess, the snowstorm that's expected to hit New York tonight and Washington, D.C. tonight and tomorrow. So mayors really, no matter what their high in the sky goals or themes may be, right?
There is no progressive snowfall. There is no Tea Party snowfall.
Right.
There is snow, and mayor's got to deal with it.
Mayor's got to deal with it, right? I mean,
that's why when I look at these de Blasio ran a populist campaign. Income inequality was one of his themes. We'll get to the thing I wrote about in a moment, that they had the same media consultant, which is interesting because Rahm is a centrist, de Blasio's more left. But in the end, as I say, there's no partisan snowfall. And it's going to be a big test because if he can't deal with this and his people don't know, I don't know if the permanent structure of whatever they call streets and sanitation out there is there and they just have snow command. But my God, that's a test not to fail.
What do you think that Rahm Emanuel has learned in 3 years? If he were talking to de Blasio today, what would he say? Look, I came in 3 years ago, and here's the first thing I learned that you ought to learn, buddy.
I think he I don't know if de Blasio could do the command and control in the way that Rahm did, which was to be able to raise millions of dollars on the side for projects he wanted to do that didn't need city council approval. Okay, It's just he just does millions of dollars of fundraising from the corporate citizens.
Which was what he was good at when he was a member of Congress.
So he's able to create some of his own funds for things he wants to do. I would think he would have to say you have to keep crime down, because one of the big raps on Rahm is the murders in Chicago. Yes, I know.
Which has gotten a lot better, by the way. This year they have.
I don't know if I don't think I'd use the word better. There's still murders. There's fewer of them. Fewer of them, and there's still 400 something. I think it is on par or about the same, if not more, than L.A. or New York. So it's still a serious problem. So I would think that might be one thing to advise him on. The other thing is de Blasio's making a lot of promises about schools. Well, that has just been an enormous area of contention in Chicago. It's a big city issue. I don't know. Did you go? I went to a public school, grew up in the city. I don't know what you guys did, but it is still not a place where you just move in, as New York is not. You buy a house because you could depend on the neighborhood public school working, or a local school. You could get into the charter that you want without hassle, or the magnet school. So I think the schools and crime would be what, if I'm guessing, would be two things he would talk to him about.
Right. And that first big test again,
and keep the snowplows warmed up.
Yeah.
When is the snow hitting Washington? I have no.
Tonight.
They're saying tonight.
They're saying tonight. Right. And by the way, this is another city that
my shovel is on the porch. And one thing about Washington, D.C., you're from Los Angeles. I don't know if you know about this. You're supposed to shovel when it snows.
Tell my neighbors that.
Hello?
I do, by the way.
About
yes,
this?
I do.
Shovel?
Or Carol does. But one of us does. Yes, absolutely. No, that's your responsibility. That sidewalk in front of your house is your responsibility.
And where I grew up, you do yours and your neighbors if you get out there first. But I find in Washington this idea of shoveling doesn't seem to have caught on yet.
There's a lot of things that haven't called in Washington where people about doing their own job, right? Yeah. One of the other big stories of the day. But let's talk about President Obama. We heard him. He's kicked back. He's enjoying his vacation, and he's got every right to. And he really kind of needed. You and I were there at the White House the day he left for Hawaii, and the first question Julie Pace asked him was, "So when you look back at 2013, was this the worst year yet of your presidency?" It
was brutal, but a well-done question. I applaud her for just asking it instead of dancing around it.
Absolutely.
As so many people of our brothers and sisters
And we
do.
all laughed, and the president laughed because he knew it was a brutal question. Of course, he said, I wouldn't quite put it that way.
Right.
But 2013 was a tough year for him.
It was a tough year, and even though there are pluses, the brined economy, he avoided a skirmish in Syria. We have other achievements, but I would say between the IRS scandal, the Obamacare botched rollout, that just overshadowed a lot of what he wanted to get done because he didn't move on immigration. If we would have bet on one thing, if we could roll back the clock to this time last year, I would have bet that there would be something.
We all did.
Immigration. Yeah.
And we all did because Republicans were saying,
it's time.
We got hammered in the Latino vote in November 2012, so Republicans need to take the lead on this.
I thought there would have been at least one piecemeal thing done by now. But
right. So the Affordable Care Act did roll out yesterday, and they did get the website fixed. The stories now I saw over the weekend, or the last couple of days, were stories about people who have never been able to get health insurance before who now have it, which is different from the story about all those people who go online and are put on hold for 24 hours.
Right. And
so has he turned the corner on the Affordable Care Act?
Maybe and maybe not. I think the maybe not. And here's why. The website not working was the least of the problems on this. And that was a process issue.
Right.
And one of the things I think the administration should have learned is why did they put a deadline on it? It's silly. There's just these self-imposed deadlines in Washington. Instead of just getting it ready, doing an education. I mean, I understand you couldn't just not have any idea, but it could have been on or about. The website will be launched on or about October 1. Okay, now it looks like the Republicans would have done him a favor if they hadn't shut down the government and just delayed Obamacare. But so let's say they will get that behind them. There's two stories. The stories of people who are getting care that they never got before, and the people who, for now, are going to be angry because their policies were not renewed, even though they probably weren't as good as the policies they could get. Now, they may not have known it or cared.
Mm-hmm.
They might have had a policy where if, God forbid, they got sick, when they had to deal with the prices, the costs, they realized they didn't have much coverage. But that was kind of not the issue, the political process policy issue that is facing Obama this year.
I guess the real question that I have is, at what point do Republicans realize that, you know what, Obamacare is here to stay, and we ain't going to repeal it, so we better come up with another issue?
Yes, now that is the other point. They're going to fix it. And see, Obama has 3 years left. This whole thing may not become saturated into our civic life for a few years. But yes, I don't see how it's going to go away, because even the army of enrolled people who are getting benefits they never got is still going to trump politically the army of angry people
Absolutely.
who are just complaining about price and deductibles and copay. But they will have coverage.
We've got to take a quick break here. When we come back, Lynn Sweet's with us from the Chicago Sun-Times. You are here too, of course, and invited to join the conversation anytime at 866-55-PRESS. The New York Times today with a clarion call for amnesty for Edward Snowden. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough. Enough. Enough.
Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom.
Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 26 minutes after the hour. Lynn Sweet is here from the Chicago Sun-Times as a friend of Bill this entire hour, and all of you friends of Bill, welcome back. Lynn, so just about a minute and a half here, but the New York Times this morning with a major, great, big, huge editorial basically saying Edward Snowden, it's time to recognize him as a whistleblower and let him come home here and stop pursuing him with criminal charges. Yes or no?
No. Will it happen? No way.
Really?
No way. He's under a criminal, he's facing criminal charges right now. No one's...
Well, drop him.
It's not, I think it's a practical matter, Bill. We deal with practical politics, practical reality. How could you possibly see that happening without that tying up everything that Obama wants to do in the third year? And legally, I have a column out where I talk to Jeff Stone, University of Chicago law professor, who is one of the 5 people on the president's NSA panel. Now, the report they put out with the 46 recommendations doesn't talk about the constitutionality of the act or about Snowden. And they clearly have sided with him in recommending a lot of changes to the agency. But when I interviewed Stone, he said Snowden is a criminal because he took stuff that wasn't his as an employee and gave it away. So it's hard to show. Sometimes you get clemency after a process. After you can't. The editorial kind of gives the impression you want a pre-cooked deal of clemency. That might not be exactly how they say it, but you can't. I just can't ever see that scenario rolling out. But I guess, do you?
I'd like to see it rolled out. I'm not sure it will. We'll be right back with Michael Calderone.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say done, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour now. Thursday morning, January 2nd. Welcome back to the real world. Well, I'm not sure this is the real world, but anyway, we're all back at work here today. Good to have you with us, and we start off the day with our first in-studio guest, our first in-studio friend to Bill for 2014, Lynn Sweet, Washington Bureau Chief with the Chicago Sun-Times. Happy New Year, Lynn. Great to see you. We are gearing up in our job as White House reporters here for the year 2014 and looking back also at 2013. Here's a man who does that every day with his eye on the big media stories of the day. The senior media reporter for Huffington Post, Michael Calderone, on the newsline with us this morning. Hey, Michael, Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year, Bill.
Good to have you with us. And meet Lynn Sweet if you don't already know each other.
I'm Michael.
Good to hear you, Lynn.
Hey, so Michael, one of the big stories over this holiday season was the New York's report, and you've written about this. I think you might have been one of the first ones also to break the story on Benghazi. They took a look at Benghazi and basically found out that everything that Darrell Issa and Lindsey Graham had been saying was not true, right?
Right. The two big conclusions the Times came up with was, one, it was not a coordinated al-Qaeda attack. There is some dispute about whether some of the local militants are aligned with al-Qaeda or had al-Qaeda ties, but the Times is saying that, no, this was not a coordinated al-Qaeda attack. And then secondly, the Times is saying that this video, this anti-Islam YouTube clip, actually played a key role, that it fueled the anger and the initial attack on the compound. So,
in other words, what Susan Rice said that Sunday after the attack was correct?
Well, not exactly. I guess the distinction the Times is making with the administration was Susan Rice suggested that the attack was, came spontaneously after a protest over the video. What the Times is saying is that the video actually prompted the attack, that it didn't prompt a protest that turned into an attack, that it's what fueled the initial attack. But it is significant because for probably about a year now or longer, much of the media has written off the video as having any sort of role. So the Times is saying that this video had a role. And when I went back to the Times' earliest coverage, and Reuters as well, both the Times and Reuters had reporters on the ground in Benghazi during the attack, and both news organizations reported at the time that militants they spoke to, that people who were involved in the fighting, said that they were angered by this video. So it's interesting that the Times story now, doing a lot more reporting, a lot more comprehensive look at all this, comes to one of the same conclusions that the Times actually had immediately after attack, but which has since been seen as discredited.
Well, one of the questions that I have is why didn't the administration, if this is the truth about Benghazi, and let's assume it is for our discussion here right now, why didn't the administration get this story out a long time ago? Instead, we've seen, in a year and a half of Lindsey Graham and Darrell Issa, particularly the two of them, beating the war drums on Benghazi and using it to clobber President Obama.
And to set up a cloud over then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for her potential future run for president. It is interesting about how hard could it have been that hard for Issa. I mean, Issa has obviously a point of view. He wants to, what is the term, stick it to the Obama administration when he can. But I would think that in terms of just a core investigation on some fact-finding, could have dug this out, perhaps. But Michael, you cover the press all the time. Let's put in a plug for the enormous resources and time that the New York Times put into this story. And that still is something, if people wonder why you need newspapers and why you need professional paid journalists, this is the kind of story that it shows.
Right. I mean, this isn't something you could do overnight or aggregate in any sort of way. The Times spent months re-reporting this story. In addition to having done a lot of reporting, for the past 15 months, it's not like the Times ignored it, Benghazi, but they really put in the time to kind of walk back through what happened and, spoke with a number of people on the ground. I mean, this is kind of shoe leather reporting at its best. You have, David Kirkpatrick, who's a very good reporter, speaking to key people on the ground and trying to get the closest version of what happened. I mean, there's just such a cloud over Benghazi, and so much, you have partisan forces, saying it was this, it was that, so I think this is a good approximation. It's not going to end the story because people will still say, some of the local militants that Kirkpatrick spoke to are aligned with al-Qaeda, so they'll still say it was an al-Qaeda attack. So in no way has it put it to rest for people who you still see this as Obama and Hillary Clinton, falling asleep on the job and al-Qaeda attacking. I mean, they're not going to be swayed by the Times. But I think the Times did a really good job at adding a lot of nuance and complexity to a story that has been lacking some.
Well, let me just say that Darrell Issa and Lindsey Graham will never accept the truth about Benghazi. But I think now we know the truth about Benghazi. But I think it's that the administration should have done a better job of getting the truth out. And they would have saved themselves a lot of grief. Peter?
One of the things that the Blaze website picked up on first, I think, that they noticed in the report is that one of the Libyan journalists there was there at the time of the incident, talked to some of the attackers, which would sort of insinuate that they know who the attackers are, that the New York Times dealt with them. So I guess what happens then? Because we haven't found the attackers.
Well, I mean, this is interesting that the Times has talked to this guy, Abu Ghatala, who has basically been giving interviews for the last year or so. He sat down with David Kirkpatrick. He did a 2-hour interview with CNN in a crowded hotel. He sat down with Reuters. He had a Times of London reporter over to his. Well, I mean, the difficulty, and this was expressed in a recent Washington Post story, is that there's a huge amount of concern if the U.S. or Libyan authorities actually apprehended this guy. That when they apprehended somebody in Tripoli several months back, it caused a tremendous amount of problems on the ground, and it just shows the fragility of the government in that news organizations can find this guy, and he seems to be willing to do interviews, and yet Libyan authorities seem reluctant to actually apprehend him, and it's unclear exactly what would happen if they did.
Yeah, wow. Michael Calderone's our guest. He's senior media reporter for Huffington Post, joining me and Lynn Sweet here on the program this Thursday morning. Michael, let's look back at and Lynn at 2013. Michael, you cover the media every day. What were some of the big highlights in 2013 that from your perspective?
Well, I think 2013 is some of the biggest things you saw are a couple billionaires getting into the news business, and I think this is something that's going to carry over to 2014. You have the Washington Post with Jeff Bezos purchasing the paper a few months back, and I think people are really curious about exactly what he's going to do. He really hasn't left much of an imprint yet. I mean, things seem to be sort of business as usual over at the Post, and the other billionaire is Pierre, who is teaming up with Glenn Greenwald and Jeremy Scahill and others. And so far, there's not much he hasn't launched his site yet, but he's pledging $250 million, and that's that's going to be one of the most watched burgeoning news outlets of 2014. So I think a lot of people want to see what these two guys who are showing that they want to put a huge investment, a huge amount of resources into the news business, kind of what they're actually thinking.
Well, one thing that Al Jazeera launched Al Jazeera America last year. Am I right? Is that the newest national news-oriented cable outlet? And even if it's not the newest, what's your prognosis on how they're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, Al Jazeera America was a major investment into the U.S. market. Previously, there was Al Jazeera English, which had a small, solid niche following, but was definitely not a national outlet. So far, the ratings have been very low for Al Jazeera America. Part of this could be still word getting out. Part of it was that Time Warner Cable, which is a major cable distributor, here in New York and L.A. and elsewhere, wasn't carrying it for most of this year. So the ratings are low, but they're backed by so much money that through from Qatar that so far they're not at least publicly they haven't shown any concern about the low ratings. They're willing to keep funding this, I think for some time. They're not worried about advertisers, and unfortunately they don't need advertisers as much as other news network or other for-profit news networks would. So they keep saying that they're focused on the product, that they want to do a great news network, and that eventually viewers will follow.
They have so much money that they don't care, right? I mean, seriously, they don't care whether they show a profit or not. They don't care whether they get sponsors or not. They just have money to burn, and they want a presence in the United States. But I do have to say this. That maybe Al Jazeera might have better ratings if they had adopted some better programming when they started their network. And I know at least of one opportunity they had, which they passed on. So you can take that for what it's worth. But anyway, take that, Al Jazeera. You want to improve your ratings? Here I am. Michael Calderone, thank you for joining us this morning, Michael. All right, look forward to talking to you often in 2014. Thank you, Michael. Oh, is he still there? I guess he's gone. All right. That was a good question about Al Jazeera. See what you stirred up this morning?
I did not know. I just... I'm just asking.
All right, I want to come back to you, Jeffrey Stone and Michael Snowden, when we get back. And your calls, welcome at 866 Edward Stone, 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 12 minutes before the top of the hour. Lynn Sweet with us from the Chicago Sun-Times as a friend of Bill this hour. In the next hour, Alan St. Pierre, the executive director of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. A big day in Colorado yesterday when pot went on sale for the first time anywhere in this country, legally, for recreational use at any rate. Alan St. Pierre here to tell us all about it, and we're counting on him to bring in samples of Colorado's best. Lynn, yesterday, January 1, Healthcare, Affordable Care Act, the beginning of coverage for those who took advantage of to sign up. But Justice Sonia Sotomayor put a little wrinkle into things at the very last minute by saying she was going to put on hold the one part of Affordable Care Act which required coverage for contraception as part of any health insurance policy.
Right, and this is a big issue for some religious institutions.
Particularly Catholic, a group of Catholic nuns she was responding to from Denver.
Right, and this is a temporary order. It is ironic, as many people noted on the web, because on Twitter this lit up, that as she was going to New York to signal the new year with that ball.
Dropping of the ball,
Dropping
right.
of the Times Square ball. Before she did that, she signed this order. So, yeah, I mean, this is still... Even though this is probably the part of Obamacare that, with all the thousands of regulations, complicated stuff dealing with hospitals and Medicare, Medicaid, and all this stuff, these social issues are just flashpoints, and I think they'll just continue to be. And we don't know how this will eventually end up because the stop order was temporary.
Right. And the government has to respond. Yeah. The government has to respond by tomorrow. But I think the basic question is the nuns claim that this interferes with their freedom of religion.
That's always been the core argument from some of these groups. And there is a Band-Aid measure that the administration had figured out a few years ago when this flared up, and that was to carve out waivers for some employers and some institutions.
Right. But if 95% of Catholic women from every poll that we've seen admit that they use birth control, some form of birth control, no matter what the bishops say, no matter what the priests say, then why should the government why should health insurance plans not cover contraception?
I'm agreeing with you, but that doesn't explain the political problem because the logic that you and I might see, you have to respect it, Bill. It just isn't the way a lot of people who are very concerned about the abortion issue, who are
This is not abortion. This is birth
control.
control.
I know. Excuse me. I meant birth control. Everybody, please strike the word abortion. And I should have just said
down,
that.
tweeters.
Stand down.
I just want to be sure.
Right. No.
That's very important to make
because
that
this is an important
distinction.
distinction.
Yes.
And I think the reason my mind did it is that, frankly, it is some of that people who are also involved in that movement,
of course,
who are involved in the anti-contraception movement.
Of course, right.
So you forgive me for having said it, but it is always interesting in a discussion like this that, well, if you don't want abortion, then why wouldn't you want contraception? But even leaving that aside, because my whole career I've covered this, and I think we'll both retire, and this will not be resolved. So should where does personal choice stop and employer right to pick and choose what you want in an insurance plan? Now, as a side note, as people have more ability to buy insurance in the marketplace, maybe this will diminish as an issue for some people who now get insurance through employers. But I guess the core thing is, it isn't about showing a poll that women of any faith believe in this or that. I think there is a core issue that has to be resolved, which is, when you're an employer, do you just have to offer a package of benefits and let the conscience of the people who are the beneficiaries of this insurance kick in rather than the employer?
I think the core issue is, the way I would put it, which is the same, I think, core issue that you see. The Catholic Church has every right to believe and to preach anything they want. It's not the government's job to enforce it. They preach that birth control is wrong. 95% of Catholic women say, we don't buy it. We don't buy it. So the Catholic Church is now saying to the government, you have to do our job for us and prevent these women from getting birth control. Well, it's not our job.
Actually, when it comes to contraception,
let the church do what it wants. Government, we should do what we want.
Right, and if a person's faith says don't use contraception, then don't use it.
No, exactly, and it's, again, not up to us to enforce it. Lynn Sweet with us here on the Bill Press Show. We'll be right back and take a look at 2014 with all of you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In 1920s America, the Great Depression effectively erased consumer demand. Struggling manufacturers needed new ways to get people buying again. Innovative production processes like stamping and use of molds allowed them to use new materials for their designs. Products using vinyl, chrome, aluminium and plywood began appearing. American industrial designers began introducing streamlined, efficient shapes that shouted progress. Bel Geddes pioneered what we now refer to as utilitarian art. Things that had little reason to look sleek now all of a sudden did. At the 1939 World Fair featuring Bel Geddes' immensely popular Futurama exhibit, a new era of American industrial design proudly claimed to be building the world of tomorrow. Americans found great positivity in these futuristic forms. Yay. Things were looking up. American industrial designers realized that by making objects look great, people simply wanted them more. From cars to kitchen appliances, the most influential society on earth was spending money again. Mass consumption had arrived. Advertisers finally had lots to talk about. Personal taste could be expressed through the things you bought. Style became equally as important as function. Chair designers like Eames and Saarinen didn't just design seating, they created desirable lifestyles. People behind the products suddenly were stars. Everyone wanted to know who they were. Raymond Loewy was one of the shining lights of American industrial design. His face ended up on every coffee table in the nation. Toothpaste packaging promised whiter teeth. Washing powder packaging promised whiter whites. Who knew such simple household objects would shape the tastes and ambitions of an entire society? American industrial design improved America, functionally, culturally and intellectually, and exported it around the globe.
Hey, we have a new mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, sworn in yesterday by former President Bill Clinton. And his first test in office may, in fact, be a snowstorm. A big blizzard headed to the East Coast from Chicago, where it hit Chicago yesterday. Find out all about that and a lot more here in our third hour of the Bill Press Show this morning. We know we lose you on Free Speech TV, so come on, switch over to the video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV. See you there.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. In the next hour, Alan St. Pierre from NORML right here now. Lynn Sweet is a friend of Bill. You can follow her, of course, at she's with Chicago Sun-Times, suntimes.com. Or more importantly, follow Lynn on Twitter at Lynn Sweet. That's easy enough. At Lynn Sweet.
And
right?
Twitter is open and ready to get all my new followers, hopefully.
Oh, my God. Is it ever?
I'd be very eternally grateful.
And you've been tweeting away already, like mad, early this morning. All right. 30-some seconds. President Obama said 2014 is going to be a breakthrough year. What do you see as a big breakthrough for 2014?
If he got some immigration passed, if he got the minimum wage passed, those would be just two big items. And on the domestic front, and if he is able to continue to contain Iran's nuclear ambitions, that would be a big one internationally.
Yeah, and maybe even some resolution in Syria, though that may be too much to ask.
But I would think, he has a lot of self-imposed deadlines for things, and I would think, we're going to come up in a few months on that first Iran one. So I would think if he got any of those, anything on immigration, I would think you have to do it sooner than later because the midterm election is this year. And that could have.
I think if he accomplishes the things you mentioned, he will have a breakthrough year. Lynn Sweet, thanks for being with us. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Is the Bill Press Show.
All right.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Happy New Year 2014. Here we go. First show of the new year. Good to see you today. Good to have you with us. The Bill Press Show on this Thursday, January 2nd, coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station. all across this great land of ours. Hope you enjoyed a very good, relaxing, happy break over Christmas and the New Year's. And good to be back to tackle the big stories of the day as we start this year 2014. We're also, you can join us, of course, on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Coming to you live from our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, joined here in the first for the first part of this hour by Alan St. Pierre, good friend who is executive director of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, on a big day, day 2, that you can buy pot legally in the state of Colorado. Hey, Alan, nice to see you this morning.
Happy New Year, Bill.
Happy, healthy, and hempy New Year.
That's right. That's right. That's my line today.
There we are. Good. Big day for you, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right. I feel like I'm almost remiss not being remote from Colorado, reporting to you for you from a dispensary. Yes.
Well, what we're
the lines are way too long. By the way. I mean, the shots I've seen, there are lines wrapped around the corner.
Yeah, I think people are actually using the product in the line to go back in and resupply themselves. That's what I'm seeing from the footage.
They may be doing that. Well, we were we were anticipating that you would come in with all kinds of samples from Colorado.
Yes. Well, that would be illegal, unfortunately, under the 8 guidelines that our good federal government provided to these states. Seriously. One of the 8 was you can't leave the state with the product. And so I heard a young woman on NPR today say that she had she came from Kansas, bought a 1/4 ounce, smoked it all, and ate all of her edibles, and was now going to drive home. So she was following the law, I think.
You know. But think of all the money she brought into the state of Colorado.
Exactly. So some folks were doing queries. About a half or more of those folks standing in line were coming from out of state.
Sure.
So they paid those hotel taxes. Sure. They paid all that stuff. So yeah, cannabis tourism is live and well in Colorado.
All right, here we go. With our team here this morning, Peter Ogburn, with Alicia Murphy.
Good morning.
Murphy, Alicia Cruz, and Cyprian Bolding. Good morning and Happy New Year to you all. Another big event, sort of, he hasn't gone so far as to call for the legalization of pot in New York City, but Mayor Bill de Blasio, the number one progressive, you've got to say, in this country today, yesterday in his inaugural address, I think it's been a long time since this word progressive has been heard from the steps of City Hall in New York.
We commit to a new progressive direction in New York. And that same progressive impulse has written our city's history. It's in our DNA.
Progressive nature, it's in our DNA.
He almost spelled it out.
No, he really did. And Michael Bloomberg having to sit there and listen.
Oh, yes. No, it must have been like sitting on pins.
I know, but we said this earlier, compared to Rudy Giuliani, Michael Bloomberg was a progressive. I mean,
the juxtaposition politically here. And by the way, I noticed yesterday in the thanking of the previous mayors, I don't think I heard Giuliani's name come up in that. It seemed like he seemed to be left out of the event.
Yeah. So Bloomberg gets somewhat of a bad rap for being... I mean, he's not as progressive, certainly, as de Blasio, but he is no right-winger.
Hardly.
Either, so. Anyhow, Alan's here to talk all about Colorado and what next we can expect. A little bit later, we're going to be joined by Mike Richman, who's a sports journalist, to talk about a big shakeup in Washington's football team, which shall go unnamed, of course. But first, Peter's got the big headlines for the day.
Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Happy 100th birthday to commercial aviation. Yesterday was the birthday. It was 100 years since the very first commercial airline flight happened. It was the St. Petersburg-Tampa airboat line, and it flew across Tampa Bay, Florida. And it was January 1st of 1914.
It's when people first paid
to hop on a plane to take them somewhere.
Fly across the bay.
I flew back from San Francisco to Washington yesterday, and you would think that they would have announced that, right?
Some cake or something.
100th anniversary, or just at least mention it.
Yeah. A Gallup poll of the most admired men and women in America was released this week, and topping the list for men is President Obama. Just behind him was former President George W. Bush and Pope Francis, who got 4%. Leading the votes for women is Hillary Rodham Clinton, and just behind her was Oprah Winfrey. She got 6%. And shockingly, tied for third with 5% is Michelle Obama and Sarah Palin.
Unbelievable.
Both equally as admired.
Whose poll was this?
Gallup. Gallup was the poll. And Johnny Football had quite a bowl game on New Year's Eve.
Gallup, I just might point out, who was the farthest from the truth when it came to the election in 2012. Right.
Right.
They were the worst of all the pollsters, so go figure.
Johnny Manziel, the Texas A&M quarterback, tied a Chick-fil-A bowl record with 4 touchdown passes. He led Texas A&M past Duke by a score of 52-48 in a come-from-behind victory. They were down 21 points at halftime. Manziel rallied with 2 touchdown passes, including an impossible play, which if you haven't seen yet, just go Google Manziel play. I mean, it's like the video's everywhere. It's insane. You got to go see it. A lot of people speculate he's going to jump in the NFL draft after that big win.
He minted that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Peter, thank you. So Alan St. Pierre with NORML, Colorado yesterday. How many outlets opened up to be able to sell?
As of yesterday around 9 o'clock, 35 outlets, largely in the Denver Metroplex area, but some of the ski town places also opened up.
Was it statewide?
Statewide, yep. And they anticipate upwards of about...
in every county? Or
not every county, but certainly on the Front Range. If you wanted cannabis yesterday legally for the first time on the Front Range, you could, if you were willing to wait in line for about an hour, you could get some legal marijuana.
And this was a holiday, right? So it didn't matter, right?
It was quite a holiday, yes.
Yeah, exactly, right. And are there going to be more stores open?
Oh, yes. The state anticipates minimally by the end of this year at least 350. The state already has 800 so-called medical marijuana dispensaries, and almost all of them, in using the sort of computer parlance, are upgrading to a legalization license.
Okay, so how do you get a license? These are not state stores, right?
No, they're not like a state-run liquor store.
Right. No.
Now, having said that, in Washington State itself, they will be running their marijuana program through a state-run liquor store program. So, like the same thing we have in about 20-some
But in
states.
Colorado, you have to apply for a license.
Like a private licensee. Yep.
So a small business could just start up and... This is what... And what... how about the price range?
Right now, the prices are amazingly, not that much cheaper than you would find illegally here on the streets of Washington, D.C. It's about $40 to $50 a quarter. So that's about 6 or 7 pre-rolled joints. It's about where prohibition prices are right now.
$40 to $50 for
4 or 5
for a quarter of a
quarter ounce of marijuana.
So like seven or 8 joints. So
That's
pretty
right.
good week.
Yep.
Pretty good week.
Or if you're with Snoop Dogg, about 35 seconds.
Yeah.
But here's the big distinction: the state and the town actually got 25 to 30% of the taxes. That's the big difference.
So it's not going into the pockets of the drug dealers. It's going into and yesterday, I mean, there was no lack of customers, right?
Oh no. The big concern was supply. Were they going to actually run out with marijuana? So what most of these places did was put aside about 30% of their supply for their medical patients and open up about 70% of their supply for recreational users.
All right. And where is the supply coming from?
Right now,
Colombia, Bolivia.
I would suspect some of it still is coming from the illegal market, but the vast majority is now being grown by, in some cases, like one brand is Medicine Man. They produce 5,200 plants right now. They have contracts to get up to 15,000 plants. So
in Colorado?
In Colorado.
Greenhouses?
It must be grown indoors. So they seek to have a completely insular state program run by private people, taxed at the 25 to 30% rate, which is about where we find alcohol and tobacco.
So this is the makings, at least, of a major industry, right? With you got growers, you got suppliers, you got, the whole chain.
By our calculation, in Colorado over the years, about $60 to $80 million a year was already coming in through medical marijuana. And back then, they were servicing 1 out of 9 marijuana consumers, 1 out of 9 claiming that they were a medical patient. Today, they're going to be servicing 9 out of 9.
Wow.
Here's a little phenomenon that I hadn't thought of yesterday until we heard a clip this morning from a veteran who lives in Virginia was in Denver yesterday. Here's his take.
I'm a daily user, and in Virginia, I have to worry about getting arrested and having my family in jeopardy and having my career in jeopardy. And I'd rather live in peace and enjoy what I do without having to worry about going to jail.
Do you think you might see an influx of people coming into the state just for that reason?
Well, there's going to be quite a migration. Even people within my own family, in-laws, have moved to Colorado specifically because of the change of law. But more notable in today's headlines, which is kind of off subject but not really, are the amount of families that are moving with children who live in states like New Jersey, where the laws are so restrictive regarding medical marijuana that they are simply pulling their families up and moving to Colorado so their children can access physician-approved medical marijuana.
Whoa. Now, all these stories about Colorado, what happened to Washington State?
So Washington State is about 3 months behind. They anticipate by about April. They set a schedule not to have this triggered on the 1st. They took a more deliberative program. I mentioned earlier that they're doing it through the state liquor board, so there's inherently more bureaucracy. But by April 1st, they anticipate they should be up and running. So they're only about 4 months behind Colorado.
And there'll be a bit to learn, I guess, from
Washington has a lot to learn, and about 50 other states and territories do as well. And many parts of the world are focusing on how did the federal government and the states negotiate these changes.
There was maybe a couple of months ago an article in the New Yorker magazine about Washington State, and I was blown away by how complicated this whole process is. And if you take something that's illegal and has been forever, and you make it legal, it's not that easy, right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, there's so many complicated. I mentioned price, where you buy it, how much you pay for it, who can sell it and who can't, and what it can be used for, and I mean, driving, right?
Drug driving is really the big concern. That when you strip away most of the things we're not that concerned about, like you mentioned, those come from prohibition. But at its core, when you deal with law enforcement like we do, in the end, they want a DUID measurement device, and they're going to get it in time. There's no doubt about it. But that's not a reason in our minds to keep marijuana illegal another 78 years.
Mm-hmm. What's the next state?
Well, this year in 2014, Oregon and Alaska are up next, and they could
on the ballot or what?
On the ballot for legalization, and I know this will have some importance to you. California. California, we are very close, mainly because the calendar necessitates this decision very soon. The passing of Peter Lewis about a month ago, who was the individual who donated more money in the United States than anybody to reform marijuana laws. His passing makes it unclear whether there'll be resources in California. But if his family and estate want to move forward, then California is going to be on the ballot in 2014 as well.
It's been, I forget how many times it's been on the ballot. I have
5 since 1972.
Really?
Yeah. With Lamar, it began in legalized marijuana initiative in 72.
I have voted for it every single time. I want you to know. And my day will come.
Well, in 2010, it only lost by 3 percentage points.
I know,
and we
I
learned
know.
from these lessons in Washington and Colorado. We're going to apply them in California, and I suspect it's going to prevail.
It is a totally different world than in 2010.
It really is.
It is a totally different world.
Yes. Yep.
And it has moved fast. And I think any state that has this, that's moving possibly in that direction, just watch Colorado. You know, I mean, because it's been done so well, I think.
The one thing I was really disappointed, or maybe not surprised, but I was disappointed. So yesterday, with all this celebration, the mayor didn't show up, right? The governor didn't show up.
No cutting of the green ribbon.
No. I mean, come on. They deal with it. The people have spoken, right?
Yeah, we did not. Thankfully, Hickenlooper and others have been more supportive than not behind the scenes. It's been remarkable, the negotiations they brokered with the federal government to make this happen.
Yeah. So I guess we give them credit for that.
Huge credit. So I genuflect in their direction.
All right. I was disappointed they didn't show up. I wanted to see the governor.
Oh, I know. Me too. The former brewer.
Taking a toke.
Sure.
Yeah, I did. I really did. Alan St. Pierre with us. Your questions, your comments, your state may be next. 866-55-PRESS. Legalization of marijuana. It's about time, damn it.
This is the Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 25 minutes after the hour. Big day in Colorado yesterday when marijuana went on sale legally for the first time ever in this country. Alan St. Pierre is the head of NORML. Gets a lot of credit for what happened in Colorado and in Washington State and what's bubbling up in other states around the country. Alan in studio with us this morning. Okay, so I'm California, right? Now we got Washington State. Pretty soon we'll have Oregon. Pretty soon we'll have California. All right, those of us from the West, we're happy. What about the East Coast? What about the Northeast?
So the two states that seem most primed to move forward for full legalization at the legislative level are Maine and Rhode Island. Maine, we only lost by 3 votes this year, and after the federal government put out...
The state legislature would do this.
Yes. So we only lost by 3 votes in a vote in July, but in August, the federal government came out and effectively said uncle and allows these states to move forward, and those 3 legislators in Maine said, okay, we're persuaded, we can move forward now. The question is, can we override a governor's potential veto?
He would veto, do you think? He said he would?
We suspect he will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Rhode Island, that surprises me.
Well, Rhode Island was one of the first states to adopt medical marijuana, and there they have overridden 3 governors' vetoes to move legalization.
Wow.
The legislators there have like what we call marijuana moxie.
Yeah.
They really have
Well, if
stuffed
they've
their
overridden
government.
3 vetoes, why isn't it the law of the land there in Rhode Island? Yeah.
Right now, we suspect coming into this year, they could be the first, along with Maine, the first state to legalize it at the legislative level, which I think puts having the government imprimatur on this is a lot different than the voter initiative process.
Sure. Now, given we've talked a little bit about the economic benefits to the state of Colorado, that has to appeal to some of these states, right? Because states are hurting.
And they are, and this recession, and in Rhode Island, this is pronounced. There are some of the biggest cities in Rhode Island are in bankruptcy now, so they're very keen for the revenue.
And the Obama administration has kind of given, I remember you and I talked about this when Colorado and Washington voted. What was Eric Holder going to do? What was Obama going to do?
That's right.
They've sort of said, we'll let the states decide. Is that it?
Late in August of this past year, the administration came out and said that the states, based on 8 criteria, could legalize marijuana retail sales. And so now these 2 states have done so. People lined up yesterday. Millions of dollars was exchanged, and marijuana was sold in our lifetimes.
All right, so when's the District of Columbia coming on board?
The D.C. government is primed to legalize marijuana, I think, in the next 2 years.
Look at the smile on your face.
You could have a dual citizenship between 2 legal marijuana places. Yeah.
From your lips to God's ears. Happy New Year. All right, Alice St. Pierre. Off to a great start, I would say.
Where I shot out of a cannon or a bong.
Is the Bill Press Show. on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
What do you say? 33 minutes after the hour now. Here we go on a Thursday, January 2nd. First live show of the new year. Good to have you with us. Happy New Year, everybody. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, and you know we have spent a lot of time over the last month or so, or longer than that, it seems, talking about the big controversy here with Washington's football team and increasing pressure on the owner, Dan Snyder, to change the name of that football team, which he has stoutly resisted. Well, now there's more news about Washington's Red football team with a great big shake-up this last Monday, last day of 2013. In studio with us, sports journalist Mike Richman, who is known as the Redskins. That's the name of that team, which we hate to use, but known as the Redskins historian and author of this big volume here, the Redskins Encyclopedia. Mike Richman in the studio with us this morning. Hi, Mike. Nice to see you.
Hey, Bill. How are you?
Thanks for coming in. So, Peter, what was the shakeup, first of all, before we get Mike's take on it?
Well, we knew that it was coming. Head coach Mike Shanahan was not going to survive Monday. They sort of leaked word out before the weekend that he was going to be gone. So,
well, before I left for my vacation, I mean, he was toast. It was.
And then they got crushed in their last game of the season, and so Monday he went in and they let him go along with a lot of his staff, including his son.
That's correct. Yeah. Kyle Shanahan was fired.
Kyle Shanahan, right. And does Dan Snyder still have a job, Mike?
Dan Snyder is the owner of the team, and he's remaining the owner of the team. He's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere, no.
All right. So how bad was this season?
Well, the 3-13 record matches the 3-13 mark in 1994. In terms of the worst seasons over the past 2 decades. However, I consider this the worst season since 1961 in more than a half century. The Redskins went 112-1 in 1961, a 107 winning percentage.
Oh, wow.
Well, the reason I say that is because comparing the season to 94, there were such high expectations heading into this year with RG3 and the spectacular year that he had in 2012. And then people thought that he was going to continue with that success this season, but it didn't happen. So there were those expectations. And you wouldn't be mocked if you said, hey, I thought the Redskins would finish 11-5, 10-6, 9-7 this year.
There were a lot of people that predicted them to go to the Super Bowl.
People thought they would make a Super Bowl run. I said NFC Championship game, 11-5 an NFC Championship game. But see, that's why it really came crashing down this year because the expectations were so high. Comparatively, in 1994, that was Norv Turner's first year coaching the Redskins. Okay, so you didn't have those lofty expectations.
No, I'm curious. I have to ask you, and not only are you the author of this Redskins Encyclopedia, but show us this book here. You have a camera. You can hold it up. I don't have to hold it up. Right. I don't think I could lift it. This is the Football Vault, right?
Right, the Washington Redskins Football Vault.
Which is, again, the history of the team.
Right. It's a history of the team going back to its origin in the early 30s until the present. And what makes the book unique, though, is the memorabilia in it. Duplications of game program covers, ticket stubs, press passes. There's a letter from the U.S. Attorney General to Sonny Jurgensen in 1964. So you have all of these items that are rarely seen, and they're in this book. And
I have to ask you, I mean, I'm curious, does every NFL team have its own historian?
Well, I cannot answer that. I need to say that I'm not employed by the team.
Right, okay,
but
we should make that clear. Right,
we have to make that clear. But I've been aligned with them since the late 90s. I was a stringer for the Associated Press and was covering Redskins games and practices. And so when Dan Snyder bought the team in 1999, I started doing work for their writing for the game programs, and then when they launched a website, wrote for their website, which I still do today.
So you're sort of the self-anointed historian of the Redskins, right?
Yeah. It's a brand that I've created.
All right. Now, what happened? So you're right. The expectations for 2013. I'm not a big sports fan, but at least I live in Washington, so you can't help but absorb some of this, right? I mean, so everything was built around RG3. What happened?
Well,
it's just that he didn't recover from his injury, or what?
Well, he did recover, according to what the doctor said.
Right.
The doctor said that there was a full recovery, and he started the season opener against the Eagles. But what happened is, while he rehabilitated himself in the offseason after the surgery, he had no opportunity to practice. He didn't participate in OTAs, organized team activities, in May and June. And then when the preseason rolled around, he didn't play in any preseason games. And that's not good for a quarterback. You can do that at another position, such as a lineman. But at quarterback, you really need to practice. I think Peyton Manning did it 1 year, but that's the only other quarterback that I know of that's done that and then come into a regular season and has had a very good season. But he didn't play at all. And so he was very rusty when he first started. And I do want to say that heading into the season, I said he should not start.
Yeah.
I thought bring him in after the bye week, which was after the first 4 games of the season, and then let him play. Start Kirk Cousins, because there is no way he came back at the 8-month mark after the surgery. Such a traumatic injury. This was his second ACL operation. He also had the LCL repaired in his right knee. He had the ACL done in college as well. So, and the doctor said, well, it's going to take 7 to 9 months. They brought him back at the 8-month mark.
Yeah.
To me, that is reckless. It should not have happened.
Yeah. And whose fault is that? Is it his? Is it Shanahan's? Is it Snyder's?
I think that first of all, when right after the surgery took place, RG3 became involved in this quote "all in for Week 1" campaign.
Yeah.
So that put pressure on him. It put pressure on the team, on Shanahan, Snyder, and then when the training camp rolled around, there was this back and forth between RG3 and Shanahan. Griffin said he wanted to play in the preseason. Shanahan said, no, you're not. And so then that kind of friction continued for a while. And then when Griffin got the okay from the doctor to play in the season opener, Shanahan said, oh, wait a minute, it's going to take me a while. It's going to take me a few days to make a final decision. So there was that friction that was taking place before the season. I actually think the season was lost after the first 3 games.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, I think, encapsulates the entire relationship of the organization with what it used to be, because a head coach's job, like I understand RG3 wanted to get back out there. Every athlete that's at the level that he is wants to perform. That's, they're the legendary stories of guys that go out there with broken arms and things like that, okay? But I think a head coach has to be in the position of saying, look, I know you want to get out there. You got to sit down. You've got to get right. You've got to heal. And then Snyder is saying he wants RG3 to play. RG3 is saying he wants him to play. He wants to play. And Shanahan didn't have.
Well, I want to say Snyder really didn't get involved in this at all.
Okay, all right.
We didn't hear a peep out of him in the offseason regarding the situation with RG3. And really, I put the blame on Griffin and Griffin's father.
Yeah,
because they changed the way RG3 was playing as a quarterback. In his first season, it was this read zone option type scheme that the Redskins used, where Griffin was more of a combination pocket passer and runner, and it threw defenses off. There was that element of surprise. Whereas in his second season, they tried to transform him into a pocket passer, which he never was in college. And the father said in the offseason, hey, you show me a running quarterback and I'll show you a loser.
Oh, really?
Okay, so the father became involved as well. There was all this pressure that was mounting, and
such a mess.
That is a major reason that this came crashing down this year.
All right, so let's go back to this massacre last Monday, right, when they fired everybody. Does this fix the problem?
It's impossible to say right now. It really is.
Was it the right move on Snyder's part, do you believe?
I think at the point when the Redskins lost to the Cowboys in the next to last game of the season, I think then it was time to say goodbye to Shanahan. When he inserted Cousins before the Atlanta game with 3 games to go, I was saying, okay, if Cousins performs well, then possibly Shanahan will stick around. I was considering the fact that Shanahan had 1 more year on his contract, and if Snyder fired him, he would have to pay him $7 million, which is really peanuts to Snyder. But also, he'd have to pay the assistant coaching staff a total of, I believe, $6 million if he fired the assistants. So there's a lot of people he'd be firing and a lot of money he'd be paying for no productivity at all. So I thought Shanahan would stick around for another year, but I think after the Cowboys game, it really became unbearable, and it was time for him to go. And it's really unfortunate. Shanahan is a great coach, 2-time Super Bowl winner.
Yeah.
And I think in ways he was sort of dealt a bad hand here in Washington. He inherited a mess after the 2009 season that was Zorn's last year. But Shanahan made his share of mistakes as well. And I think he really miscalculated at the most important position on the field, which is quarterback. The trade for Donovan McNabb in 2010, which I have to admit that I was excited about the trade when it first happened, but in hindsight, Jason Campbell, I think, would have been a good transitional quarterback until you find a franchise quarterback. And then Shanahan, quote, staked his reputation on Beck and Rex prior to the 2011 season. And even the trade for RG3, like I said earlier, I was not in favor of the trade.
Mike Richman is with us. He's a historian for Washington's football team that not only now has to find a new name, they have to find a new coach. We haven't talked about the name yet. You're not going to go away before we get your take on that. We'll be right back here. Your questions, your comments, always welcome at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show. seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
12 minutes now before the top of the hour, Thursday, January 2nd, coming to you live from our nation's capital, where football fans are reeling with this big shakeup with Washington's football team. Mike Richman is the historian for the Redskins, self-identified. And also, I just realized you not only brought in this copy of your Redskins encyclopedia, the Redskins football vault, but the tie, Mike.
Right.
Is this the official Redskins tie?
It is very close to it. It's the tie that I wear all Redskins-related events. I mean, I am the Redskins historian, so I have to represent it's my team.
I know,
it's the team that I grew up with, and
this is your uniform, right? All right, well,
exactly. I'm decked out.
All right, you are in uniform today. So Shanahan's out. Who's coming in?
Nobody knows at this point. It's all speculative in terms of.
Does anybody want this job?
It's a marquee job. This is a marquee job in the NFL.
But you have to work with Dan Snyder.
Dan Snyder has gotten a bad rap. Okay? Dan Snyder is not entirely at fault for what happened in these past 4 years. He gave full control of the team operations to Shanahan. Mm-hmm. I think Shanahan is mostly to blame for what has happened in the past 4 years. Now, prior to that, in Snyder's first 11 seasons of owning the team, I would put the blame mostly on Snyder.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
It was mostly on Snyder. But the past 4 years, it's mostly on Shanahan, where I'd say Snyder has gone wrong since Shanahan came on board. If Snyder was influential in any personnel decisions, that's where he needs to step back. He cannot influence any decisions. He cannot meddle like that.
Well, there is a feeling that he and RG3, they hang out together, they go to dinner together, play golf, whatever they do. They're buddy. So therefore, that got in the way of Shanahan's relationship or control over RG3.
Right.
Anything to that?
I'm sure he's not the only owner to be close to a player like that. Yeah. But I would say at this point, enough of what happened last offseason where RG3 was on the celebrity circuit and Snyder was there with him at times at the French ambassador's residence.
Right.
That has to stop this offseason. It has to be entirely focused on football for Griffin and, of course, for the rest of the team. And Snyder needs to step back. No more of this in the spotlight. Just all football.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think that's I think that's valid. I think a lot of people back up sort of what you say, that he certainly had his share of missteps, but that he did sort of turn it over to Mike Shanahan. So now we'll see what happens.
All right, you follow this stuff closely, not as close as Mike. In any leading candidates for the next coach?
Well, we were talking off the air. So the Panthers defensive coordinator McDermott is one of the guys that they've interviewed or are going to interview. Bevel. And then the Seahawks offensive coordinator Bevel is the guy that they're talking to. But then Bill Cowher's name keeps coming up, which if you follow football, you've heard of Bill Cowher, the Pittsburgh Steelers coach. He's been out of the game for 4 years
since after the 2006 season. So
yeah, I mean he's been out for a while. So I mean, you could go to someone who's been in the trenches for a while and work their way up and get an up and coming give somebody their first head coaching gig, or you could go to a marquee coach like Bill Cowher. What do you think that they're going to do?
I don't think they're going to go to a big name coach like Cowher. I don't think they're going to take that route anymore. They did it with Shanahan. They tried it with Marty Schottenheimer, which I actually think was the worst mistake of the Snyder era. I think it could have worked with Marty. He went 8-8 in 2001, and Schottenheimer is the type of coach that the Redskins needed, but unfortunately Snyder fired him after that season. I don't think they're going to go in that direction. I think they're going to go with an assistant, either offensive or defensive coordinator.
All right. Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, Barack Obama all say change the name. What do you say?
I don't think the name's going to change.
That's not what I asked.
I don't think the name should change.
You don't?
No. It's been around for 80 plus years. In all of the research that I've done on Redskins history, I've never come across anything disparaging regarding the nickname. The owner, George Preston Marshall, came up with the nickname in 1933, the second season of the team's existence. There was nothing derogatory that he meant by it, and I don't think it should change.
Well, we'll talk. We'll talk, and I just have to say this. No man is right about everything. So you can be wrong about that.
How about you?
I'm right about everything.
And I want to be like you.
Michael Richman. Hey, Mike. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
You can follow Michael on Twitter. Mike on Twitter at @skins_historian, right?
Right.
@skins_historian.
And my website, redskinshistorian.com.
Oh, that's
cool.
easy.
Excellent.
Redskinshistorian.com. We'll put a link up on our website as well. Mike Richman, thanks. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
And on this Thursday, January 2nd, Happy New Year indeed. And for some 2 million Americans plus, it was a Happy New Year. The first time ever that they've had health insurance for themselves and their families through Obamacare directly or Medicaid, which of course is also thanks to the Affordable Care Act. There was only one glitch. Some Catholic institutions are still fighting having to offer health insurance that includes contraception to their employees, and unfortunately, Justice Sonia Sotomayor gave them a temporary reprieve, which is ridiculous. Every health insurance policy should cover contraception. It's a woman's choice whether she uses contraception or not. Clearly, since 95% of Catholic women do practice some form of birth control, the church is not doing a very good job of convincing women that contraception is wrong. So now they want the government to do their job for them by denying access to contraception through health insurance. And that's not the government's job. The federal government can act in place of the church. It's not up to the government to enforce a ban on birth control. It's up to the Catholic Church to change its policy. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Have a great Tuesday. Paul Brandis from West Wing Reports joins us tomorrow. We hope you'll be back again soon. In the meantime, have a good one. See you tomorrow morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.